Welcome back, everyone. Today we're jumping into principle number 11, embracing adaptability and resiliency. In the world of project management today, change isn't just a possibility, it's a flat-out guarantee. So this principle isn't just a nice to have. It's really the core skill you need to build projects that don't just get by, but actually thrive when things get chaotic.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to get right to the heart of what this principle really means. Then, we'll talk about why it's such a game changer, not just for your projects, but for your PMP exam score too. After that, we'll get super practical and look at how to actually build this flexibility into your work. And we'll wrap it all up with a clear-cut strategy to help you absolutely nail the exam questions on this topic. Sound good? Let's go.
All right, let's lay the groundwork. Before we can build anything, we need a solid foundation, right? So let's start by getting crystal clear on what we're actually talking about with Principle 11.
Okay, so the principle itself sounds pretty simple. Embrace adaptability and resiliency. But listen, these are two very powerful and very different ideas. Think of it this way. Adaptability is your project's agility. It's your ability to pivot, to change direction when the market zigs or a customer zags. This is your project's offense. Then you have resiliency. This is your project's toughness. It's about taking a hit, an unexpected risk, a budget cut, and bouncing right back without the whole thing falling apart. That's your project's defense. To win, you absolutely need both.
So we've got the what down. Now let's talk about the why. Because, knowing the definition is one thing, but really understanding the stakes involved, that's what makes it stick. Let's dig into why this principle is so critical right now.
This slide just nails the shift in thinking we have to make. Over on the left, you've got the old way. It's a rigid, brittle plan that just shatters the second it comes under pressure. Trying to force that old plan onto a new reality? Well, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. But on the right, that's the modern PMI mindset. It sees projects as living, breathing systems that are designed to evolve. The goal isn't to create a perfect, unchanging plan. It's to build flexibility right into the project's DNA from day one.
And for everyone here studying for the PMP environment, another 26%. You add that up, and that's over 3/4 of the entire test where your ability to handle change, disruptions, and new requirements will be tested over and over again. Mastering this isn't for extra credit, folks. It is absolutely fundamental to passing this exam.
So the million-dollar question is, how do we actually do this? How do we take this idea and make it real? Well, this next section is all about the how. We're talking mindset, structure, and the real-world tools you can use to build this capability right into your projects.
I love this slide because it breaks down the pivot of adaptability and the bounce back of resiliency so clearly. Think about it like you're on a road trip. At the mindset level, adaptability is like having expert steering to navigate turns, while resiliency is having great suspension to smooth out the bumps. Then, at the action level, adaptability is about changing your route, using things like an MVP to explore. Resiliency is having your spare tire and first aid kit ready. That's your contingency fund and team support. And finally, your focus. For adaptability, it's proactive. You're looking ahead down the road. For resiliency, it's reactive. It's about recovering after you've hit that unexpected pothole.
Now, to build a project that can actually do all that, you need these 4 pillars holding it up. First, you need flexible planning. Think rolling wave planning, not trying to predict every detail a year out. Next, flexible processes. You need a framework that gives you stability, but isn't so rigid it snaps. Then, and this is huge, you need a supportive team culture. That means psychological safety, where your team can make smart calls in the moment without being afraid of blame. And finally, a culture of continuous learning, using things like retrospectives to get smarter from setbacks, not to point fingers.
Okay, think of this slide as your hands-on practical dashboard. First up, iterative execution. This means instead of one giant blueprint, you're using things like a minimum viable product. You build the core feature of an app, get real feedback, and then you decide what's next. Next, buffer architecture. This is about being smart and building in contingency reserves for your biggest risks. Then we have early detection, where you can actually use data, maybe even a little AI to spot trouble coming. And finally, recovery support. This is about having a plan to help your team get back on their feet, both practically and emotionally, after a big disruption. All right, let's bring it all home. We've talked about the what, the why, and the how. Now let's build your winning strategy for the PMP exam, so you can spot the right answers and sidestep all those tricky traps.
The PMP exam is going to throw a minefield of tempting but wrong answers at you. This slide shows you exactly what those traps look like. Things like stubbornly sticking to the original plan no matter what, or slipping into micromanagement when a crisis hits, or waiting for a formal change request for a small agile tweak, or even blaming the team for a setback. You have to recognize these for what they are. They're distractors, designed to see if you really get the modern PMI mindset.
So here's your way through that minefield. It's a super simple 4-step triage framework you can use for any situational question about change. Step 1. Assess the immediate impact on your project's goals. Step 2. Determine, does this need a pivot, adaptability, or does it need a recovery, resiliency? Step 3. Choose a flexible response, like shuffling the backlog or using your contingency plan. And finally, step 4. Engage your team to find the solution and then update all your project documents. Simple as that.
And to make it even easier, think of this guide as your secret weapon. When you read a question and it's about reacting to new info or a change in scope, you need to be looking for adaptability keywords, things like iteration, MVP, backlog reprioritization. But if the question is about a sudden crisis or a team problem, you're looking for resiliency keywords like contingency reserves, team recovery, or psychological safety. These words are like big bright signs pointing you straight to the right answer.
So, look, if you take one thing away from our whole conversation today, let it be this. As project leaders, our goal isn't just to survive change. It's to build projects and to build teams that actually get stronger and smarter because of change. We're building things that truly thrive in it.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to take back to your real world. Don't just let this be theory. Really think about it. What is one small thing, one practical action you can take this week to make your current project just a little more adaptable or a little more resilient?
Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you got a ton of value out of it. Be sure to join us for our grand finale where we're going to tackle the last principle, enabling change. If you like today's session, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss it. I'll see you in the next one.
Learning reinforcement.
The 2026 PMP exam evaluates candidates on a specific reality. Modern projects must be managed as evolving living systems, not rigid, unyielding machines. Looking at the 2026 PMP exam, business environment accounts for another 26%. Principle 11 defines how to adjust those processes when the business environment shifts, linking the two domains that account for 3/4 of your total score. In a volatile business environment, the quickest route to failure is strictly adhering to a static, long-term plan when the facts on the ground have shifted. Success requires the ability to mathematically and culturally balance structural stability with mandatory flexibility. To apply this, we will unpack the operational differences between adapting and recovering, identify the distractors designed to trick you, and map out a 4-step strategy for situational questions. Mastering this principle establishes the necessary logic to navigate the situational questions that dominate the new exam format. To correctly apply Principle 11, we first have to break it apart into its two distinct operational components. This diagram illustrates the difference. On the left is adaptability. This is directional flexibility, the ability to proactively alter the plan without losing forward momentum. We achieve this directional pivot through mechanisms like minimum viable product thinking and rolling wave planning. On the right is resiliency. This is system recovery, the capacity to absorb an external disruption and successfully return to a productive state. Resiliency is executed using entirely different tools, relying on contingency reserves, emotional intelligence, and team support. Confusing a directional pivot with a systemic recovery causes project managers to deploy the wrong mechanisms entirely. On the exam, making this category error leads to a wrong answer. Adaptability and resiliency are not personality traits. They are engineered modules that a project manager must actively build into the project environment, as mapped out on this dashboard. In the first quadrant, we replace long-term predictive planning with the iterative planning engine to allow for rapid course correction. The second quadrant is the psychological safety protocol. Team members must be authorized to make localized decisions without waiting for top-down approval. Functionally, psychological safety is required so teams can surface early warning signs of failure immediately without fear of retribution. Moving to the third quadrant, the retrospective loop forces the project to replace a culture of blame with systematic learning. Regular retrospectives are the only mechanism a team has to extract actionable, corrective data from their setbacks. The final quadrant features AI insights. PMBOK 8 integrates predictive technology specifically to detect potential market shocks before they impact your baseline. Financial and schedule buffers, specifically your contingency reserves, serve as the raw fuel that allows these 4 modules to function under sudden stress. By engineering this environment, you ensure a project bends under market pressure instead of snapping entirely. PMP situational questions are actively booby-trapped with distractors. These wrong answers are built to catch outdated command and control instincts. The first trap is sticking rigidly to the original baseline plan, even when the external business environment changes drastically. The correct mindset requires a project manager to proactively adapt the plan to align with the new reality. Trap number 2 involves halting work to route every minor adjustment through a formal change control board in an agile or hybrid environment. Instead, the correct approach is to empower the team to resolve minor adjustments by reprioritizing the backlog directly. The third trap is reverting to micromanagement the exact moment a crisis hits the project. You must enable team autonomy and offer the emotional support required for an independent recovery. Trap 4 is immediately burning through contingency reserves at the first sign of a schedule or budget variance. A formal, measured assessment of the impact must always precede any authorization to tap into those reserves. Finally, Trap 5 is punishing team variance or treating sudden changes as outright failures. Setbacks are neutral data points. They exist to be processed logically during the next retrospective. Choosing these distractors indicates a failure to meet the 2026 performance criteria, which prioritize agile responsiveness over static adherence. When you face a "what should the PM do first?" question involving scope shifts or unexpected events, apply this 4-step logic sequence, the disruption protocol. Step 1. Assess the exact impact on core project objectives. Step 2. Determine the systemic need. You must decide if the situation requires an adaptive pivot or a resilient bounce back. Step 3. Select the appropriate flexible response, like activating a contingency plan. Step 4. Engage the team to formalize the decision by updating the relevant artifacts, such as the risk register or the change management plan. For adaptability questions, correct answers will frequently feature keywords like iteration or backlog reprioritization. For resiliency questions, those correct answers will focus heavily on contingency reserves, team recovery, and psychological safety. Mastering Principle 11 ensures you build systems engineered to thrive within volatility. In Episode 12, we will examine how to drive successful organizational change to reach an envisioned future state.